So good evening. It is 7 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for all being here tonight. We do have one non-public item that we need to discuss now. It'll be short, and then we'll be right back.
I move that we go into non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2 for personnel.
Second.
Moved by Janine, second by Dick. Tim? Say
Janine.
Liz? Thank you, Jim. Okay, we are now in non-public. We need, you can seal the minutes, and then we can approve the motions. Yep. Oh, we don't even have to. Yep, it doesn't matter. Yeah, we do. That's fine. Yeah, just move them. You don't need to seal them.
I move that we approve both of the requests that have been proposed by the superintendent.
Second.
Moved by Janine, second by Dick. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Both personnel actions are approved. With that, we are on to points of pride. Superintendent.
Okay, on Monday, if you did not have the opportunity, our unified basketball team battled hard at home against Conant High School. The score was tied at the halfway mark, and the Cougars were victorious at the end. Afterwards, both teams enjoyed a pizza party together in the Conval Library. Senior night for the unified team is Monday at 4 p.m. This Wednesday will be senior night for wrestling, and Friday the girls basketball team will have their senior night at home at 6:30. Best of luck to our teams. And just on a note, please, our boys are playoff bound. They have two big games, or well, one game and one big game coming. Right now they are third seed. So GBS and SMS students are preparing for the NWA MAP test next week by participating in an NWA boot camp that focuses students on how to set goals, getting in the right mindset, and practicing some basic strategies. DCS held a whole school assembly on Friday to celebrate birthdays and to connect as a community. And HES is planning a whole school social emotional learning day with 6 different activities to be held on Valentine's Day. Those are the points of pride today.
Thank you, Superintendent. We have reached the first period of public comment of tonight's meeting, where members of the public have the opportunity to address the school board. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the school board? If so, please raise your hand to be recognized by the chair. Hearing none, seeing none, there will be a second period of public comment later on in tonight's agenda. The next item we have is our consent agenda. There are 2 items, well, actually there's more than that, but we'll do the 2 items that require your acknowledgement. The first is the acceptance of the school board minutes of January 18th, 2022, where you are all provided an amendment to that. And the second personnel is resignation for Abe Ewing, CVHS Industrial Arts, and nomination for Tracy Lane as the GBS Interim Assistant Principal. Is there any objection to any of the items of the consent agenda? Hearing none, seeing none, the consent agenda is adopted. The next item is the February 1 enrollment update, which is in your packets. Questions, comments on enrollment update? You'll see that I think the number is 2063,
Yeah, looks like we gained.
which actually is up
Yeah.
from a month ago.
Yep.
Kudos.
Wow.
Okay.
Next is the list of registered school board candidates. This is the list that was provided to you the other day, and that was sent out district-wide. I will find that for you so we can read that into the record. So for Antrim, there is 1 empty seat. There was no one that has filed for that seat. In Dublin, there are 2 individuals filed for the 3-year position. One is Alan Edelkind, the other is Emily Primrose. In Hancock, it is myself as the only declared candidate. In Peterborough, there are 2 for each, 1 each for the, I'm going to say this wrong, 1 each for each of the 3-year positions. That is Dick Dunning and Tom Burgess. And then there is 1 each for the 1-year, no, sorry, there are 2 people vying for the 1-year position. One is Dr. Kriebel, the other is Gregory L. Carter. Those are the candidates for school board. The 2 individuals that are not current members will be invited, as is our policy, to the last meeting in February. Right, check. Superintendent's report. Reopening update. Superintendent.
Okay, so shortly after we adopted the new guidelines related to quarantine and isolation, New Hampshire DHHS and the CDC updated them again. In your packet is that guidance. What they have done is they talk about the difference between vaccination and up to date. Up to date is considered those people who are also boosted. So based on the fact that New Hampshire DHHS has adopted this, and so has the CDC, and consistent with our plan, the COVID monitoring team is recommending that we do that. However, they are suggesting that we wait until April 1st before we begin that process. So that is for you for your consideration.
Rich?
So, if you've had 2 shots, is there any benefit in immediately having the third, or does the booster take place sometime later? And if it's the latter, then would the exception to the recommendation be if you just got the second, you don't have to immediately have the third?
Yes. So if you were just, so it would be about being up to date, which they're really talking about being boosted, but would obviously be recommendation based on where you are in your vaccination series. What they're looking for people to be is up to date in order to maintain that 5-day quarantine. If they're not up to date, then they would go to an older type of quarantine.
Catherine?
Dr. Saunders, would you mind explaining, for those listening and just for my own clarity, that these are the recommendations, however, we don't currently collect or have the ability to, without
Correct.
it being voluntary for people to disclose this information, so there's no, could you just expand upon that a little bit? Do you understand my question?
Yes, so I believe your question is, how do we determine who is up to date? The parents and nurses work together to determine that, and ask for that information from parents. So we would be looking, and then parents and or older children supply that information. So they either bring in their vaccination card or they send the vaccination rate from their doctor, whichever, however they have their vaccination information. But the DHHS has not provided vaccination information directly to any schools, nor have they. The best we can do is look at our area towns to see what the vaccination rate around among age groups is. That doesn't necessarily mean those are our students.
And so just to fully clarify, it's still optional to provide that information.
It is optional to provide that information. If the information isn't provided, then you're on a different quarantine schedule.
Thank you, Catherine. Liz?
So I just, this is more of like I want to bring this up because I'm hearing a lot of questions from people in my town and some other towns as well, just regarding people who have had a recent COVID illness. And I know that kind of our hands are tied when it comes to discussing natural immunity because it's not being discussed at even higher levels, but even people who are vaccinated with their boosters who have gotten COVID infections are kind of curious about how that would play into things. So I'm just curious as to what the COVID monitoring team's feedback and thoughts would be on that, just wanted to kind of go on record mentioning it because it is a topic of discussion that I do think needs to get addressed.
So if you look at the guidance sheet,
Yeah,
you can see.
Catherine just showed me. Yeah.
Okay, so you can see that is part of the consideration. So if you have had a confirmed case within the last 90 days, you are considered up to date.
So is that with previous vaccination as well?
No, that is no.
Just a general positive.
Right. So
look at
if
the
you have had
separate bullet.
right, so it on the left-hand side, which is what it's on both sheets, you can see you're considered up to date if
Great.
you had confirmed COVID-19 within the last 90 days, and that's that you
Awesome.
actually
Thank
tested.
you.
Does that
Appreciate it. I appreciate it. I didn't see that initially. So thank you.
Any other questions on this one?
I would also say that the board is not in a position that they have to necessarily make a decision on this right now. So you can if you want, but
I leave that to the members of the board. We can wait till April, or we can move on it now.
Can I respectfully request that we table this only because the guidance tends to change so often, and every time we make a change, it is the public has reactions.
Sure.
and responses to that, and so I want to be sure that while this is a great recommendation with today's information, that we make that recommendation with the full knowledge that we can have access to at the time the decision needs to be made. So I recommend later, second meeting
It
in
would be the-
March?
So your options would either be March 15th would be the second meeting in March, or April 5th would be the first meeting after April 1st, which was their recommended.
But, just a follow-up, but aren't they waiting till April 1st to change the guidance? We would need to make a decision so that the staff and the nurse, everybody can,
Very good.
modify
So the fif-
their,
so
so the
March
second
fif-
meeting in March
15th or
seems
so?
reasonable to reassess this, not knowing if information will change. Thank you.
So I just think you want to think about, what the board would want to think about is making sure you're giving parents and people enough lead time to schedule a booster or to make that decision if they want. So I don't know what booster, I mean, I'm only telling you right now what you already know, and that is, for some people, getting the booster is more difficult depending on where they live. So we just want to make sure we also give enough lead time to parents. So that's in order to meet that requirement.
The state walk-in sites are open.
Yes,
and
but
so
I think the concern
sure,
was,
equity.
the concern was that about 2 weeks ago or a week ago, people were having to wait
No, I
sometimes 3 weeks to get an appointment. So that was the concern.
I think based on the information I've seen, they've alleviated some of that through the walk-in, sites. So I haven't seen that. I don't know.
That would be different.
So if the suggestion is to hold off till the March 15th meeting, is there any objection to that? Or do you want a motion to table it? Dr. Kriebel?
I don't think we need to make a motion on it, but we certainly should make a record in the minutes so that people are aware that this change is coming so they can plan for it. So even though we're not voting to change it, it should be
Aware.
appropriately noted
Sure.
as such.
So noted. Catherine?
Can I, just a follow-up, so I know we get regular communications, as a district from our principals and our nurses, maybe that the general guidance has changed could start to go out, so that if we do have to make this decision based on that information in a few more weeks, then people have had the notice, because I do sympathize with that, as a parent, making sure that people have the notice that they deserve to make informed decisions for themselves.
To that point, we have the nurses were sending out an update. Does that still goes out, right? So that might be appropriate to include in the next nurses notice, maybe? Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, seeing none, moving along.
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, yes, Mr. Dunning. Oh, sorry, officially to table? Sir, I did not either. There was no motion to adopt. There was, there was no motion made to enact this or anything like that at this time, so, I mean, by tabling it officially, that would put it on the March agenda by default. If you want to do that, that's fine by me too, but,
As long as it's going on to the March,
so I may or may not
15th.
be, what date is that? I may or may not be your chair, but the superintendent can make sure that's on the agenda.
thank you.
I got it.
Thanks.
March 15th.
March 15th.
Agenda.
And we'll make sure it goes out in the nurses, in the next release from the nurses. All set on that? Okay, great. Monthly events calendar. You have, February, and, March.
So is there anything additional next week? We have deliberative session on the 8th. The snow date is on the 10th. Anything else on the 14th? The 21st. The week of the first week in March. The second week in March, voting day is the 8th. On the 10th?
Uh,
Oh, yeah.
no, well, I mean, in. Yeah.
On the 10th of March?
Yeah, I mean, in theory, we have the, depending on the, election day, that would change. I would set them on the 15th because I would ask them, well, the new members would be sworn in on the, if there's new members, they'd be sworn in on or around the 15th.
We usually don't have committees.
And we usually don't have the
Till
committee
the first week
assignment
in April.
for another week or so.
But-
But, you can put it on there.
So the 10th? Okay. Anything else, the week of the 14th and the week of the 21st? Okay.
We don't, what about equity?
When is that currently?
It would be like, there would be the 28th? First,
No, but
First
it's not,
Monday.
yeah, but it's not on, so we'll leave it, I think we leave it like that until we get to, but that one may slide till April.
Okay, we have policy LC, which, provides us to allow research, projects. I just wanted to let you know that we did approve a research project not associated, it didn't need to rise to the level of the board, but I like to keep you informed. Research project, it involves, not students, it involves teachers, so just an FYI that is going on. Before Lori goes, I did want to just mention that the survey went out, and just poll the board to see the survey's last days. Today's the last day for the survey. I can tell you up to the minute how many survey results we have. And survey results so far, just to be really clear, have been very strong with parents. They have been very strong with staff. The last time I checked today, we had 21% return on parents, so that's actually pretty incredible. And we had about the same on staff. Of course, it's going to go slow now. And so I'm looking to see, we have about 22% now on parents, a little over probably 25% on staff. Unfortunately, we only have 127 responses from the community, and we have a low student response. So I'm wondering if we want to leave the survey open for a couple more days, maybe until Thursday. It does crunch some things, but I did want to put that out there. It would give us the opportunity to do at least one more blast from principals. It would give the principals an opportunity to talk it up among students, and maybe even provide students with some time during either task or advisory to complete it, and also for me to send another email reminder out to staff. So obviously up to the board.
Any objection to leaving it open till Thursday and asking all of you to try to push it, or Friday, and try to push it in your communities to get a little bit more response? Kevin? Right, but
Right.
that data is gonna go to the subcommittees, which are supposed to meet before then, and allow them to crunch the results so that it's not coming into that meeting entirely cold. So to that point, yes, so I would ask the board to consider leaving that open till Friday if there's no objection to that, and ask you all to do another push in your local communities. Thank you to the towns that have already
posted that on their website, we greatly appreciate it. Okay, thank you. So, Friday?
And I would turn it over to Lori to do an update on the audit.
Okay, so we do have a letter from the auditors stating that it's substantially complete and we'll have our report by mid-March. There were some delays on our end with losing a payroll person. At the beginning of the summer, we had 90 positions to set up. It really has involved everyone in the finance office and has been a significant strain because we didn't have anyone trained and available to focus solely on the payroll function. Our new accountant has picked up and learned things quickly, but there's still some unique things that it's a new challenge every week. So we're working on that. We didn't have all of our documentation available for the auditors when they showed up. On the flip side of this, as guidance has changed for the various grant funds, in particular now FEMA funds, we've had to rewrite everything as we go and provide documentation, do the adjustments, and shift things. So the most recent is that I'm finalizing some shifting today, with FEMA to maximize the most restrictive dollars. They've opened it up now, so they're reimbursing 100% of 6 specific categories, of which we had some purchasing. Unfortunately, what I did find is that most of our PPE purchases had been covered already by another funding source, but there were still monies in the ESSER funds that I could shift into FEMA. It's also good to know this isn't involving the audit for this period, but right now, as it stands, the policy is allowing us to claim transactions up through April 1st of 2022. So any PPE that we've purchased this year, the additional contract for cleaning services and such, we're going to be able to claim from FEMA again this year. And so I'm working with our representative to submit something soon.
Thank you, Lori. Catherine?
So just to be clear, our audited financials required for our annual report are completed and going to be in our annual report.
We have the letter in the annual report that has been in the annual report for the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years.
Right, so that,
Yeah. So
that'll
we're
go in
working
our
towards-
report,
we're
so that's
working
in
towards that. We will
compliance.
not have the audited financial statement in the annual report, as it has not been.
We will not.
Right.
Okay.
We will have the same letter that we've had.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And furthermore, as per our engagement letter that the board signs with the auditors, I believe we have Plazik and Sanderson.
Yes, we are.
They do such a wonderful presentation. It's part of the engagement process and the funds for them to come and speak to the board, since it's an internal control piece. I would love to schedule that when the audit obviously is complete. They do a wonderful high-level presentation to the board, an overview, and explain the audit, which is a complicated document. So I would like to make a motion that we invite the auditors to come and speak to us about the audit results when it's concluded at everybody's convenience.
I'll second.
Moved by Catherine, second by Jim. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? All right, thanks. Thank you, Lori. All set, Superintendent? Okay, moving right along. The next is teacher representative. Do we have a teacher representative here tonight? We do not. We do, however, have our student representative, Abby Kamenicki. Abby?
So last week, Conval started a new semester. So most students got all 4 new classes. And then next week, student council is hosting penny wars, and whichever class raises the most money, it will be donated to a charity of that class's choice. And then the week of the 14th, we are hosting Spirit Week all week, and then we'll have 2 different assemblies for 2 out of the 4 classes on each day. and there'll be like some competitions. And then in March, we are hosting another blood drive. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Abby. Next up is Strategic Plan Committee. That's me. We met as a committee. We had reviewed the questions. Those surveys then went out. If you are listening to this broadcast and have not yet taken the survey, please do so as soon as possible. Next. Thank you, Abby. Next is Selectmen's Advisory Committee, which I guess also falls to me. Dr. Ullman can fill in anything I missed. We largely talked about the budget. That was almost the entirety of the discussion with the Selectmen through various lenses of that, along with a COVID update. I think those were the two major topics of that entire meeting in some form. Next is policy. Catherine?
Yep, the policy committee met this evening. Tonight, before you for a first read, you'll see policy IKF, high school graduation. That policy is coming before you tonight, updated. And tonight we reviewed policy ACAC. It will go to legal. It's the Title IX sexual harassment policy. Policy JLCJA, emergency plans for sports-related injuries and additional athletic participation. That's a long policy title. That is going to go to our nurses and our athletic department for review and consideration before it comes back to policy to make sure it's aligned with the other practices that we have in place. And policy JIC, student conduct, was part of the larger JICA. We are going to move it to a required by law policy, but we're not changing anything about it. So you'll just see it annotated that it was reviewed, unless the board feels it needs to come before the board. There's no change to that policy though. It's just redesignating it and reviewing it.
It says, which is that annual review process that we had talked about previously, that the policy committee was responsible for reviewing them to ensure that they were still, that was 2 years ago, I think?
Well,
is that one?
it's a little bit different than
Okay.
that. It's a required by law policy, and currently we don't have it designated that way.
Thank you. Sorry.
But the policy itself isn't changing, so it's just an update
Okay.
and a review. But if you feel like it should come before the full board, we're happy to do that as well.
I have no objection to that update unless another board member does. Seeing none, that's fine.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Next, old business, our standing legislative update. I don't have one for you. I don't know if anyone else wants to bring anything to the attention of the board.
I believe there was 55 bills heard this week, 35 more introduced that relate to education. It was it's been quite a legislative session. Their process this year is a little bit different. They are having long work sessions, but occasionally they are execing bills during the day because there are so many to deal with. So there's a few to maybe bring to your attention. There is what I consider something positive, SB 236, which establishes a committee to study New Hampshire teacher shortages and recruitment incentives. That's a study committee, and it is recommended ought to pass. So that was happy news in a sea of not so happy. Of course, they are looking to an HB 1627 kind of change the Education Freedom Account Program Administrator to be within the Department of Education. There was no position taken by NHSBA, but the committee did recommend that ought to pass. So that would be in place of having a nonprofit organization third party doing that. There's quite a few on right to know and public minutes. Many of them are inexpedient to legislate or study committee. HB 1632 relative to civil rights education in public elementary schools. NHSBA opposed this, and the majority report went to interim study, minority report inexpedient to legislate. House Bill 1630, an unfunded mandate to require high school students to complete a half year of philosophy. NHSBA opposed, and it went to interim study. So again, I mean, I'm trying to bring you some positive
Those are
news.
good, these are all, you're doing good so far.
I'm skipping a lot of the, NHSBA opposed an important bill, 1676, making incentive grants for school districts to improve assessment scores. Not really sure this was it's an interesting take on improving student outcomes. NHSBA opposed, and it did go to interim study. So again, going to interim study is great. They can further look into these issues before there's actually legislation. And of course, we have quite a few bills yet to be heard. I want to say there's probably another 20 or 30 bills still. They have moved up their schedule, so they're looking to finish all the bills by next week. If you have positions personally, you can enter them online. They do read them in hearings and testimony. You can certainly upload testimony directly. And if we have any positions that we feel that we need to take as a board, we certainly can do that as well.
Yeah, the one that's pending that some of you have seen and some of you have shared is HB 1679, which would require all cooperative or regional school districts to dissolve by 2025. There's that. Yeah.
If you want to take a position on it, that bill has not yet been heard.
Okay.
So if the board would like to take a full position and register, if you read the bill, I don't know where our towns would go to school at that point if we had to dissolve. So there's some major concern with that bill. So I'll leave it to the chair to decide if we're going to.
I mean, I would ask the board for their intent to register our opposition to such a bill, but
I move what you just said.
That-
This is 1679, a foolish proposal.
Thank you, Dr. Allman. If there's no objection, I'll draft a statement as we have in the past and circulate that to you before I send it in. Superintendent.
I would strongly encourage a member of the school board to testify in person. I don't usually say that, so.
Thanks. 2025. Rich.
This is Cordeli's bill. Did Rick Ladd co-sponsor it?
Ward did.
Ward
Our
did,
Senator
yeah.
Ward did from our district,
Right.
or from our.
But Ladd's not on it, right?
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. School board requests.
Unless there's something I don't know, I believe we are all caught up with school board requests.
Thank you. Warrant assignments. Okay, so tonight is that fun time where we ask and/or I voluntold board members to pick a warrant article that they would like to present at deliberative session.
Don't we just assign Jim?
I think we just assigned Jim
Yeah.
to all of the budget ones, so we'll assign Jim to 1 and 2, if there's no objection. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, should that be Kevin? Sorry, thank you. So 1 is Jim, 2 is Kevin, and 3 is Kevin. Rich, would you do 4? The preschool? No. Okay. So we need someone to do the preschool expansion.
Did you just say you
He said he would not.
You don't want to do it?
Okay. Establish an appropriate to technology trust fund. Catherine. An enthusiastic yes. 6 is the energy trust fund. Okay, all right. Catherine will back to back on those. Article 7 is the capital reserve.
Okay.
So you read it, essentially, and then
Move it
move it.
and
What?
answer
Oh,
questions.
sorry, the moderator reads it, you move it. Correct.
All right, I'll do that
very brief.
I think Kira agreed to do that one.
She agreed to do it, okay. No,
I'll give you the health trust fund. That's a smaller number. I'll let Janine do the building capital. How'd I do? Is that? I'll let experience guide the. Article 9 is the second of the capital reserve funds.
Who's not doing any? How about Dick Dunning?
Thank you, Dick. Article 10 is accept the reports of the auditors. Mr. Burgess, thank you for volunteering. Article 11 is, sorry, Tom. Article 11 is school board salaries.
Alan?
Alan? Thank you, Alan.
That's a good one, Alan.
It's 42 cents an hour. It is. Article 12, we don't move. That's by petition. And Article 13 doesn't actually need a movement either because that's just the voting. The moderator reads it. If there's someone that was part of either the person that filed it or the supporter would be the first one to be allowed to speak on its behalf. And then it's open to the floor. After the person that presented it. So the board could vote to take a position on it, and or you could step down off of the dais and provide your personal opinion, or you can do it. Unclear. I don't remember what happened last time on the petition warrant article. Kimberly?
So our legal counsel will be there to go through the legal pieces of it and be able to explain the legal requirements or non-legal requirements or legal issues.
Legal. It won't be Dean, but yes, legal will provide.
Be Abby.
Rich.
I actually don't think we can. I would obviously defer to Dean or Abby, but generally boards are not supposed to take positions on non-special warrant articles. So statement of fact, sure. Or you can step down off.
You can step down off the dais and get in line and say your piece, not as the board, and then.
Well, right, because usually the board, this has been submitted by petition asking us to do something that we did not bring forward. So it probably isn't recommended that the board itself
Take a position.
take a position.
Correct.
So, but everyone is a resident, so that's a different story altogether.
So that's where that one stands. What? Those are the warrant assignments. Yes, thank you. And we'll send out a reminder with that list and copy our moderator, Bob Edwards, so that he has that as well. Next up, under new business, you have a policy for first read. This is policy IKF, high school graduation. If you have any comments, please get those to Catherine. Next up, under new business, is submission of board officer declaration. Those declarations were due today. I only have one for chair. That was myself. I only have one for vice chair that has been submitted. That is for Janine. If anyone else would like to declare themselves to run for either of those positions, you may do so, though technically you should also send me an email. Sorry, yes?
I don't have, thank you for stepping up, both of you. I just have a question about policy BDB that was adopted in 2016. Was there
Sure.
a prior version of that policy?
Is it the wrong one that's posted?
No.
Oh,
I'm just curious as to how it was determined that you need the requirements of service. I don't know if anyone who's been on the board longer can speak to that. 2 years for chair and 1 year for vice chair, precluding any new member from joining the board without declaring themselves from serving certainly as vice chair. I'm just curious as to the history, if there was a reason behind it. With a 13-member board, I can imagine, but just curious, because it automatically, 2 years on the board would mean that it's a 3-year term, so if you're outgoing, you might only be able to do 1 year as chair potentially. So I was just curious how this happened.
I don't know. I'll yield to the senior senator from Antrim.
So, I don't know the rationale. I can tell you that there was an earlier policy, because that was a policy at the time I joined. I believe it was added to the policy at the same time that the term limits for the positions were added. And that was
I think, and
what seemed good and sufficient reasons at the time for the term limits.
I can't speak to remembering that was, I believe that was actually in the policy prior to it. But I do know that the newer policy, the one that was adopted in 2016, was adopted around the term limit part, that there was a specific rationale behind the term limit for the chair.
Thank you.
So there you have that will occur at the first meeting in March, right? No,
The vote for
sorry,
chairmanship
right.
happens at
Happens at the first meeting
in
after
March.
the organization, right? Thank you. Next. Public comment. So we are at the next period of public comment of tonight's meeting. This is the opportunity for members of the public that are present to address the board for a period of 2 minutes each. If there is a member of the public present that would like to address the board, please raise your hand to be recognized by the chair. Hearing none, seeing none. That concludes tonight's public comment periods. Next is the approval of manifests.
Right, I certify manifests totaling $1,693,435.21 have been reviewed by me and found to be proper charges against Kentucky Valley School District for goods and/or services received, and have been properly processed prior to their submittal to the school board.
I move we approve the manifest as presented.
Moved by Dick to approve the manifest, second by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Manifests are approved. We do have 2 items for non-public, 1 personnel, 1 legal. Right?
Okay. I move that we go into non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2 for negotiations and personnel.
Second.
No, legal.
No, I'm sorry, legal and personnel.
Second. Thank
Moved
you.
by Janine, second by Catherine. Tim? Okay, we're going into non-public.